Today on The Report, we see how students are feeling post-election.
Discuss Australia's social media ban for minors.
And cover the mountain fire in Ventura County. The Report starts now.
Hello, I'm Kem Duosu.
I'm Noah Sakadas.
And I'm Gabriella Machuca. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at The Report CSUF or on our Titan TV Instagram at Titan TV CSUF to keep in touch with us and view our new content.
The 2024 presidential election results are in, signifying a historic comeback with Republican nominee Donald J. Trump returning for his second term after his loss in 2020. The president-elect defeated Vice President Kamala Harris with 295 electoral votes on Tuesday, surpassing the 270 electoral votes needed to secure the presidency. This marks the fourth presidential bid and makes him the second person to be elected president in a non-consecutive term. Along with the presidential election, the Senate election results have also been finalized, showing a victory for the Republican Party. This shift in control gives the GOP a majority, though House remains unclear, with more than 24 races still uncalled. If Republicans maintain control, the party is likely to have a narrow majority. Trump will assume office on January 20th. The Report anchor Justin Rosette is letting us know how students on campus are feeling following these election results.
Thanks, Kemdi. I'm Justin Rosette here on the Cal State Fullerton campus, and today we're going to ask students how they feel about the results of the recent election.
Personally, for me, I like it. Donald Trump is very good, especially for the economics and everything for the city, but it's very bad for immigrants. For me, I'm an immigrant too, but I have a U.S. citizen. So I think it's good though. It's nice. I'm happy with the results, yeah.
I think it's fairly unfortunate, but America voted, so we'll see how it goes, and I think that democracy will prevail. I think that the states will kind of figure out what they want to do, and we will keep fighting for rights for everyone. Hopefully it'll be okay. I think America will survive.
So honestly, it's a mix of happiness and also worriness. Just because I come from an immigrant family, my mom called me that morning telling me oh, I'm proud of our country's movement, but I'm also worried that I'd have to leave, if there's a mass deportation. My heart aches for her, but hopefully the economy will sink down to the way prices were back then, and also gas prices and mortgages. Yeah.
I'm scared, and I think what a lot of people are looking past right now is that people are scared. I think they're not understanding that they voted for somebody who actively wants to take away rights and livelihoods. I'm trying to be optimistic and think that we're going to have the best case scenario because I want to have faith in people. I think with the rhetoric that Trump has been saying leading up to the election, it makes it hard to be optimistic, that he kind of still has those values of prioritizing the white upper class over anybody else. So I'm hoping something shifts. I'm hoping somebody puts the brakes on it somewhere, but I think it's just the rhetoric that he's encouraged, unfortunately.
Personally, I'm really disappointed because I feel like people voted for Trump just because they don't want a black woman in office. I think it's just very misogynistic, and people just don't want to see a woman in charge of the country.
Coming from a different perspective, I feel like neither candidate was the best, but I feel like there was a better option, and I feel like the country kind of chose the worst option of the two, so I kind of feel very disappointed in that way.
You have someone like Kamala Harris who's willing to do anything for her country, do anything for her people, and you turn the other way for someone who has rigged the whole game this whole time he's been president, not just one term. Now he's going to be rigged again. He says he's cutting taxes, but he's only going to cut taxes for the rich people. He's making the rich stay rich, making the poor stay poor. More deportations are going to happen, so I don't know, it's rigged.
So you feel like there are some things going on behind the scenes that kind of favored him in this election?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it has a lot to do with race. They always choose the white man.
That's all for me here at Cal State Fullerton. Back to you guys at the desk.
On the other side of the world in Australia, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese announced the government would legislate a ban on social media for children under 16. At a news conference, Albanese said, quote, "Social media is doing harm to our kids, and I am calling time on it," end quote. This stringent legislation will be introduced to Parliament this year, with laws coming into effect 12 months after it is ratified by lawmakers. There will be no exemptions for minors who have parent consent. Communications Minister Michelle Rowland said that the platforms impacted will include Meta's Instagram and Facebook, then TikTok and X. YouTube is also projected to fall within the scope of legislation. Several countries have previously vowed to curb social media use for children through legislation. France proposed a ban for users under 15 last year, though minors were able to avoid it with parental consent. The United States requires technology companies to seek parental consent to access the data of children under 13, leading to most social media platforms banning those under that age from accessing their sites.
A fast-moving brush fire that ignited on the morning of November 6th continues to sweep across Ventura County in Southern California. First sighted around 9 a.m., a small fire was reported near Balcom Canyon Road and Bradley Road, though by 11 a.m. the flames had jumped the State Route 118 highway and swept through homes, agricultural property, and equestrian ranches, with local residents immediately ordered to evacuate. Fueled by the Santa Ana winds, the Ventura County Fire Department has reported at least 140 firefighters battled the blaze through the first day, though by 5 p.m., no containment of the fire had been reached. Evacuation warnings were ordered for the Somis and Camarillo areas with an evacuation center established at Padre Serra Parish. Road closures are in effect with detours for evacuation. As per the recording of this episode, the fire remains active on the northeast portion of the Dire with red flag conditions predicted to continue as ground crews, helicopters, and mutual aid resources work around the clock to save lives and protect properties. The cause of the wildfire remains under investigation, and we send well wishes to the local residents.
So how do we feel about the election results?
Well, it wasn't until I did the election special that we did about a week or so ago that I really knew like what the numbers were going to be, because I wasn't really following the polls or anything, and I didn't know it was going to be that close. But once I realized it was going to be that close, I thought, probably like a 70-30 chance of it happening, to be honest.
Yeah, if you had been following, I do agree, Kemdi, that it was kind of not very surprising with the results during this election. If you've been following the polling numbers for the past few weeks and even before October, what we saw was Kamala Harris and Donald Trump were very close in the swing states, but ultimately what ended up occurring is Trump pulled ahead during the middle of October, and that lead lasted into early November when the election began. So what happened was essentially Kamala Harris was expected to win because the analysts on CNN, MSNBC, and other media sources expected that this was going to be the natural way of how the election would turn out. I think Alan Lichtman was one of the political analysts who uses this 13 points process to correctly assess who the winner is going to be, using a system in which the popular vote is applied and whoever the change candidate is. Whoever the change candidate is for the United States, then that is usually the winner. And he used this process to predict Donald Trump's win in 2016. Unfortunately, this time that was not accurate. But what we saw was a historic win for Republicans that we have not seen since 2004, where the Democrats incredibly underperformed with Kamala Harris. And I think partially that has to do with the fact that they did replace the Democratic candidate right in the middle of the election process. We had Joe Biden, who unfortunately he did not perform very well during his presidential debate, and they kind of replaced him with Kamala Harris in the middle. And so you had all of these resources and all of this effort now put into another political candidate. So for a lot of Democrats, I feel like there was the number I think was 15 million Democrats did not vote for Kamala Harris. And you also have to remember that a lot of moderates went with RFK, who also endorsed Donald Trump. So there's a lot of factionalism right now, it seems, within the Democratic Party that I think they need to go back and reassess and discover what went wrong, because this is there was an insane turnout for Donald Trump. I mean, if you look at the counties across the United States, I believe it was like no counties in the entire country outperformed Joe Biden's results in 2020. 2020 had the biggest number of election numbers. It was the largest election in U.S. history, actually. And so what we saw was a lot of people just didn't participate. But I think they really need to go back and reassess what went wrong in this turnout. What do you think?
No, I definitely agree that the Democratic Party has to reform and reorganize how it approaches its candidates and its campaigns, in part because Kamala was so late. But also,
Right.
I truly had my blue bubble be burst because I did not realize how low the voter turnout was going to be. And I understand why there was so much fear and concern surrounding voting for Kamala in terms of, I mean, with any politician, you always have a certain sense of will they actually follow through with what they're saying in comparison to how they've performed in the past. And I think because we had a candidate who was president before and who has followed through to the best of his abilities with what he says that he wants to do and has such a strong platform, that's going to completely overshadow another politician that is new to the game and a lot of people have less trust in. So for me, I really felt shocked because in my mind, of course, our algorithms are going to cater to what we see or what we believe or what we want to endorse. So I thought, okay, maybe we have a little glimmer of hope and maybe something historic will happen for a woman president. No, no, did not happen at all. So I think it's just a big reminder to all of us to be advocates for who we believe, whatever it is, if candidates and also our local voting was also interesting to see. I'm from the IE, and my specific hometown has historically been more so red, and that also has flip-flopped over the years, so then seeing how it also turned out in terms of the local votes is very interesting. So, a lot of feelings.
I say the Democrats, they just need they need a guy, No, I didn't mean it like that. But I just need they need someone that's just oh, okay, this person unbeatable. This is the person, guy or girl. I didn't mean to say it like that. But we need someone that's just undeniably this person so likable. Everyone likes them. Need a JFK type,
Yes,
everyone loves them.
It's true. It's in the old days they would call that a statesman, somebody that kind of represented the ideals of the country and the people that they represented. So I think that's what the Republicans have right now with Donald Trump. And the Democrats had it with Joe Biden in 2020. I think he was kind of the figurehead that was going to clean up the country after the first Trump presidency. And I think in response to what you were saying about how we have our algorithm kind of caters to what we want, it seems like in California we are one of the bluest states in the union, to be honest. So I think if you surround yourself with like-minded people, and then it's generally going to be not exactly an accurate take. I mean, it was an interesting election for sure, and we'll just have to see how the next 4 years are going to go with Donald Trump back for another term.
Yeah. Speaking about heat, how about that fire?
That's right. I was listening to a story from ABC yesterday, and currently, tragically, the fire is 0% contained, and a lot of that has to do with the high Santa Ana winds. They can't get fixed-wing aircraft up there to the top of the mountain to drop down fire depressant. That's the problem right now, is because you have to fly in at a certain angle and you drop down water or whatever that be down on the fire. And if the winds are too strong, then you can't do it. You have to have helicopters or firefighters on the ground. And so they're not able to mass contain the fire because of these high winds. So until they die down, that's going to be the issue right now.
Well, my hearts and prayers go out to everyone in Ventura County. Yeah. I hope everything works out all right.
How do we feel about minors under 16 not being allowed to have social media? I personally didn't get, I'm trying to remember when I first got social media. I believe 15, 14. So I know all the 15 and 14-year-olds over there are kicking and screaming. I know I would be if I was in their shoes. But I do wonder how strict is too strict, because no matter what, I do think there are going to be kids that lie. I definitely lied on certain websites so that I could play Cartoon Network, although I was not age appropriate.
DisneyChannel.com, yeah.
Exactly. So it's a nebulous area of, yes, we need to protect kids from certain content, but how do you do that appropriately? What's the best mode of action?
I personally don't mind if I know 16 might be a bit extreme, but to be honest, we don't need social media that young. A lot of it is wants, a lot of it is desires. It's just an endless dopamine rush now with the reels and the scrolling. It's not too bad, and it's Australia, and if that's what they think is right for their kids, to not have social media until 17, I don't find that's a major issue. I mean, I wish I didn't have social media until I was older than that. But I mean, wants and needs are two different things. You want something, you need something. So I I don't think there's really much of a need for a social media account unless you're trying to network. But who needs to network at 16? What do you think, Kemby?
Well, I also think Australia has kind of like a history of being a bit more extreme when it comes to certain things, and they have like results. For example, I think it was in the 90s. Like they just like took everyone's guns.
Right,
and that
the buyback thing.
Yeah, and that worked. That seemed to work out pretty well. I honestly I don't know much about Australian news, but haven't heard about a lot of shooting incidents over there. And I also know when COVID happened, they like just locked down. Like not like here where it's like, sometimes you go outside, maybe hang out with a couple of friends. Like it was just everyone locked down, and then by like end of the year over there, people were going to baseball games like it was nothing. So.
There was a lot of controversy, though, because of the heavy policing during the pandemic. Unfortunately, there was a lot of incidents I saw on Twitter and Facebook in which it seemed like the police were kind of going overboard with the enforcement. They were breaking into homes of people that were claiming to violate the pandemic policy, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that you mentioned they had a gun buyback. So unfortunately, the police kind of have more authority and more control over their people than the United States, where they have to be way more, aware of the possibility that a person might not, take likely to a response from law enforcement. That has to be taken into account. But in Australia, they don't have to worry too much about it because owning personal firearms, unless you have licenses, is illegal. What do you think about that, Gabby?
Well, now I'm starting to wonder, what are the penalties for kids who somehow bypass this legislation? That also has to be written in. How are you going to find the parents? Does that fall on the parents? And it's not completely related to this, but I'm also now wondering about the future of kids on social media on behalf of their parents. Is that going to be a future loophole that they're going to have to try to figure out when we think of like family vloggers? Or maybe it's not even someone who's trying to make a business off of their kids, but it's just an innocent post. Your kid isn't on social media. They don't have their own account, but how are people going to worm their way around, and how controlled and how policed is it going to be?
Like how Ryan's Toys does.
Yeah.
On a lighter note, you could also say this is good for kids because, you got to think, all of the cringe stuff that we were doing on social media before we were like adults. So I honestly think it's going to work out in the best case for them.
I think it's more than that. It's going to be good ultimately, I think, for Australia because you won't have that temptation and the brain rot that we have around these days. It's just better for it.
And with that, that's all the time we have for today. Have a good week, everyone.
And stay tuned for more news, views, and info.
We'll see you next time on The Report.